The Hearthstone meta definitely is looking pretty stable right now, and in this video I'm gonna tell you exactly which are the 5 best decks in Hearthstone right now, so you can be hitting easy legend in December. There's no huge surprises in here, but you still need to know what the best decks are in order to know what to play with, as well as what you should be expecting to play against, so I hope you find the video helpful, and if you do, a like and subscribe would be awesome, and do me a favor and check if you have the new hype option under the video, and if you do, please click that hype. It is a cool new feature YouTube is introducing, and it does really help a lot. It's free, but it's an amazing way to support the channel for free right now. And another amazing way to support the channel for free right now would be to check out my Raid Shadow Legends channel. I just made a video about how you could be starting the game with ease, with tons of extra stuff, so give that a check if you still haven't, and do let me know if you like it. But now, let's get into the video.
You are not prepared!
Now, again, the first deck on the top 5, without a shred of doubt, would be Midrange Shaman. This deck has been top tier for way too long now, and I will be expecting it to get some sort of changes really soon, but until that happens, you're still gonna have to play either with or well against this deck if you want to be climbing to Legend. It is indeed the most popular deck right now, and for good reason. Any single iteration of this thing has close to 60, if not very far, higher from 60% win rate, and this one's no different. You can't really go wrong with either of the Midrange Shamans right now, as long as you're running the perfect 24-ish best cards for the deck, you should be right as rain. And in this iteration, we are going for a more classic approach with a single copy of a Hex in here, so you can handle things like Bonsomdies, things like Ravenous Demon Hunters, so you can hex their blobs, and you still have yourself Hagata, so you can pull off your good Frosty Decors, your Furious Fells, your Wish Upon a Star, and heck, even Nebula is in here, which is not as classic as it used to be, but still, it does make sense. You have amazing early game with things like Murloc Growfence, as well as Bumbling Bellhops, and both of those you could be buffing with things like Birdwatching, with Flight of the Firehawk, with your Turbulus, and that way you definitely always have something to do in the early turns. You can check one of my many mid-range Shaman guides both for quicker and slower variants of this deck if you want to really know how to play it, however. The matchup section for this one is actually pretty barren, even though this has at least 1000 games in it, so I will have to opt for something slightly different, like this one looks like an obvious choice, one more Static Shock instead of one Nebula. It does have worse win rate, however, but a lot more games, so let's see what the matchups here look like instead. And here you can see that Ravenous Demon Hunter definitely will not be your friend, but not that hard by the way, like it's not an absolute counter or anything like that. And everything else, pretty much green guys, pretty much green. Like, you really should not have a problem climbing to Legend with this deck if you're playing it at least semi-properly. For the mulligans, here's what it looks like going first. Turbulus is always gonna be great, Birdwatching's fine, Parrot Sanctuary, Murloc Growfen, Flight of the Firehawk, Hagata's amazing. If you're curving into Elise, that's also perfect. The pop-up book could be okay of a key, but honestly nowadays not so hot. You're not running the draw card if you've cast a nature spell card in here, so I would not hold on to pop-up book. Bumbling Bellhop could be a consideration, but you have to have a good reason to hold on to it straight out. Personally, I wouldn't. I'd much rather get it out of a Birdwatching or a Flight of the Firehawk. On the coin, again, you have plenty of the same stuff at the top, and here even Muradin becomes a bit more keepable. Depending on the matchup, even Hex might make sense, and if you're curving into a Shutter Block, that might also be good. For other good Shaman decks, we can see plenty of different lists of mid-range Shaman. I think this is the one I showed you right now. There it is, one Hex, one Nebula with 1000 games. But as you see, there's plenty more where that came from, and honestly, you really can't go wrong with either of them. I did see Asteroid Shaman actually is also playable, but we're gonna have to scroll a lot to see something different than mid-range Shaman, like I'm not even kidding. And here it is, Elemental Shaman 53-ish, 54-ish, Asteroid Shaman 52-ish, not too amazing, Nature Shaman not amazing at all. So yeah, if you're gonna be playing Shaman, might as well play the big dog. On the number 2 spot, we do have Ravenous Cliff Dive Demon Hunter, and this deck is still a great way to actually be countering mid-range Shaman. As you saw, it was literally the only negative matchup for it, so it definitely is a great pickup, and it doesn't really have too much bad matchups on the other side of the spectrum either, so you really should give this one a try if you want to be hitting easy legend and you're having a hard time. We are running Broxigar in here, not because he's good, but because he gives you the portals as well as the Axe of Cenarius, and the portals plus the Axe give you a lot of card draw, and also they muddy up fellow Ravenous Demon Hunters' Death Rattle pool, because these minions do summon for the opponent and they can actually get them through their Fell Hunters, through their return policy, that kind of crap. Not only that, but with the help of the weapon, you're going to be getting yourself a lot of extra card draw, and heck, even without the weapon, you're going to get yourself card draw because you play this for 0 and you hero power into it, and for 1 mana you cycle through your deck, which is definitely not bad. The red cards help you handle some big men, and you could be using them both for tempo or for lethal, but yeah, in general, you have yourself Blob of Stars with which you could be very defensive. You get your Ravenous Felhunters, which you get to revive the blobs of tower over and over again, and you also get to do that with the help of return policy, which makes you extremely sticky and extremely potent when it comes down to filling up the board over and over again. We even have the climbing hook in here, basically to activate your release, and with the help of Califero you could be doing obscene things like full boards of Illadaris, full boards of Mags, and heck, even full board of Ziliaxes wouldn't be the worst. Even though it's just a Twin plus Perfect module, it's still gonna be pretty brutal. Again, definitely check out my guides about decks like this. I have several for the new version, I have several for the old version, so you can't go wrong with either. The matchup section is extremely populated here, and we can see things like Aggro Demon Hunter might be a problem, Discover Hunter and Face Hunter slightly on the negative, Elemental Shaman could be a little bit too quick because you don't really have too much healing where you're coming from, but like I said, you are great against mid-range Shaman. Here it actually even looks a lot better than it did from the mid-range Shaman's perspective, so yeah, if you want to be beating those, this would be one of the best decks to do so. When going first, you're going to be looking for your weapon, for your card draw with the Harvest, Blob of Tar can be great, Wyvern Slumbers, both for 2 damage AoE if the opponent goes hard, or for a couple of idiots. The Portal ain't bad, so you can start cycling. Infestation is also decent because it's basically 8 damage on a stick for opponent's stuff for 4 mana only. At least the Navigator is extremely important for you to have in your hand before you play your Califero, because she would be the worst low roll you could be getting out of that. Axe of Cenarius can also be a consideration, even though it's not that amazing. If you already have the weapon or the blob, you could even consider Ravenous Felhunter depending on the matchup, but be careful not to be too heavy on the hand. On the coin, we have plenty of the same stuff. I'd say here the Ravenous is even more keepable if you already have a weapon or a blob, but the rest kinda looks the same. And while we're on the subject for Demon Hunters, Aggro Demon Hunter is another great deck you could be picking up if you want to be climbing Easy Legend. Again, not much has changed about this deck. This one is the version with Mukla, as well as Ziliax, as well as the Perennial Serpent, so all of those super big threats super early could be too much for most opponents to handle. You still have plenty of hand damage with things like Acupuncture, with Infestation, the Spirit of the Team is damage from hand again, a couple of Hot Calls if you're facing too many board-centric decks, the Dream Planner Zephyrus also gives you a lot of damage, Dangerous Cliffside is basically a fireball across a few turns, and with Kayn you get to bypass the pesky taunts. What you do want to do, however, in the early turns is stick a good board with good minions, so you can actually chip some damage for the opponent's face, because the hand damage is not gonna get you there more often than not. So that's why we have things like Battle Fiend, like Sock Puppet, Mukla on turn 2 or 3 can be amazing, Ziliax on turn 3 or 4 as well, and same can be said for the Serpent, even though it does take up a little bit of preparation, but you do have things like Slumbering Sprite, which you could just leave on the board and not activate. You have the red card with which you can activate as well. The Grim Harvest can give you a more than 1 turn dormant, and that way you should be dropping the Serpent with ease on turn 3 or 4. Again, give my detailed guides a check if you want to play the deck better, but now let's see what the updated matchups are looking like, and yeah, Death Knight could be a problem, especially if it's the control variant. Face Hunter could be a little bit too quick for you, and mid-range Shaman is slightly on the negative, even though nothing too fancy. Even things like Quest Warrior are not going to be that big of issue for you, so you should be climbing with ease. Going first, here's what it looks like. You're going to try to curve off with your good proper early game minions, and curving into Mukla could be extremely powerful. Spirit of the Team on turn 2 can be amazing. Grim Harvest, especially if you have yourself a Perennial Serpent you want to be dropping fast, but just don't forget this thing is not guaranteed. It does have 33% chance of fucking you over. If you play it on turn 3, it might give you just a single turn dormant minion, and that way the Serpent is still gonna be full price. King Mukla or Ziliax, if played on curve, could be basically game ending, so try to figure out how the matchup's gonna go and mulligan accordingly. On the coin, again, give it the good old 1-2-3 and you should be right as rain. For other good Demon Hunter decks, we could also see things like Peddler Demon Hunter still being up there, but for today I'm giving you this Ravenous Demon Hunter, as well as this Aggro Demon Hunter, and as you see, both are extremely powerful with very big sample sizes. Peddler Demon Hunter is still up there with a smaller sample size, however, there's also a thing called Big Demon Hunter, which is kinda like the Ravenous, but without things like Elise. This one does have Briar Spawn Drakes, which is a interesting way to kill the opponent faster. You even have things like Aeon Rend, which is interesting, but the really proven decks are the one I already showed you. Next up, we also have Dragon Warrior, which technically could have been the third deck on the list, but for the sake of having the Demon Hunters next to each other, we did do them like that, but technically the third deck on the list should have been Dragon Warrior, which is still going as strong as ever. I literally just gave you a guide about this one, so you can definitely just jump on my fresh new video from today about it if you want to know the details about it, but even though this one is slightly different than the one I showed you, so let's go over to the key differences. In this one, we are running the Curator, which makes us also run things like Xavius, as well as the Plucky Paint safe in because those are a couple of tribes, and in order for us to fit those in, we had to remove the 2 mana sufficiency, which definitely did look sufficient for the deck, but this way you do get yourself a bit more card draw. Everything else is literally the same about the deck, so yeah, definitely check out the guide. The matchups are pretty populated, and you're gonna notice you are gonna have some rough times against some of the Demon Hunters, as well as some of the Death Knights. Protoss Priest might be a little bit on the negative, and same can be said for mid-range Shaman, but everything else is very green, so again, climbing should not be your problem. When it comes down to the mulligan, going first, you are gonna want to curve off with your good cheap dragons, with your good Dark Rider. Curving into Petal Peddler, especially if you already played a Gift Trap Whelp on one, could be huge. The Brute Keeper is a keeper. The Stone Carver can be decent, especially if you have a Sanguine or a 3-2-1 turn 1. Curving into the Illusory Greenwing could be decent. The rest probably not so hot, however. On the coin, it's plenty of the same stuff, so now you know. When it comes down to top legend, we also have things like Quest Warrior still being hella strong, but from Diamond to Legend, I would definitely be slapping with Dragon. As you see, the stats are definitely pointing in that direction. This is the one I'm showing you today, and there's plenty of different iterations of it, but the perfect 25 cards still remain the same. We gotta scroll down a little bit to see any of the Quest Warriors, but here we have it, about 57-ish% win rate, definitely nothing to scoff at, but the games with it are a lot slower, and the deck is a lot more expensive and skill testing, so there's that too. Other than that, I don't think there's any other warriors out there that really should be sparking your fancy, so let's move down to the last deck on the list. I was actually gonna include Face Hunter for the last deck on this list, but notice what happened here. Like, this is for the last 7 days, and right before the season ended, Face Hunter was actually super top tier, but look at this. Right now it kinda actually plummeted, so instead of Face Hunter, I would instead show you BBU Control Death Knight again, because this deck definitely is still very solid, and for the last 3 days it actually has some pretty crazy stats still, with almost 1000 game sample size. So I'd say this would be the much more proven deck right now. Not much has changed about this deck, and you can definitely again check out my guide about this one, as well as for the Face Hunter for that matter, but as you saw, the stats are kinda not backing it up anymore. But basically the nerfed Death Knight from the past is kinda back with full force again. You're only running a single copy of Sanguine Infestation, however, but you still have Firak, you still have the Giants, you still have Naralax, and you're still winning plenty. We also have obviously Elysian here, and a couple of blobs of Tor definitely help the deck plenty, and with things like Exarch Maladar, you could be doing some obscene things very fast. The deck is called Control Death Knight, but honestly, treat it more of a mid-range deck and you should be winning a lot more too. You could be doing some obscene things with help of Exarch Maladar around turn 6 or 7. As long as you have yourself the corpses, as long as you have Maladar and something to plop, dropping 1 or 2 Stitch Giants next to it after that really does do wonders. Matchup wise, here's what we have right now. No real bad ones, but Quest Warrior might be slightly on the negative side, but if you're facing too many Quest Warriors and you're having troubles with them, just add yourself a single copy of a Steam Cleaner and that literally solves all of your warrior problems. Here's what the mulligan looks like going first. Obviously go for the Creature of Madness, for the Morbid Swarm, basically for the good cheap curve, and you should be doing well. Like, the deck really doesn't have too much early game, so as long as you find yourself a couple of those early game cards, you should be curving off properly. On the coin, the situation is the same, and here Exarch Maladar I'd say becomes even more keepable, so mulligan accordingly. This is the deck I'm showing you today. The win rate definitely isn't as high as the other decks on the list, but that's what usually is for the 5th deck on the top 5. Still, the sample size is pretty respectable, and we can see several iterations of it too. There's also this other weird Heron Death Knight, with a couple of Bone Chill Stegodons, which could be pretty nasty. We can see people slapping in things like Dirty Rats, Steam Cleaners like I said, and seems like Bonsamdi Death Knight really isn't as OP as it used to be, so there's that too. Let's see what the situation is for the last 7 days on top 1000 legend as well, so you guys have the bigger picture of the top legend meta. And here we can see Ravenous Cliff Demon Hunter is doing great there. Quest Warrior, like I said, definitely a lot better in top legend. Face Hunter as well, even though I think again it was only for the last few days. Psycho Rogue definitely looks pretty strong there, but it is a very skill testing deck. Here's the BBU Control Death Knight again. Mid-range Shaman of course, more Ravenous, nonsense. Aulonius Druid is still actually pretty decent top legend, even though I haven't seen much of that. Space Rogue is pretty decent, Templar Rogue, basically plenty of diversity in top legend right now. Discover Hunter of course, Protoss Mage, and so on and so forth, but now let's check out all of the other working archetypes for each individual class. Starting off with Druid, Ashara Druid is pretty fun, but very small sample size here at least. There is a much bigger sample size with 55-ish% win rate, which definitely looks pretty strong. Again, I have a guide about that one. Chrono Druid apparently is also playable. I've heard people say it's absolute dog water in top legend, but it does have some amazing high roll potential. Imbued Druid is playable, but I wouldn't call it great. I can tell you Huddle Up Druid definitely felt fun, and you can check out my latest video about that one. And there's several different iterations of Taunt Druids out there, which all do pretty fine. For Hunter, Discover Hunter still seems to be the best deck, but Face Hunter definitely had its moment for a few days. Beast Hunter apparently is still back on the menu, even though it's a bit slower now. There's also this weird Sylvana Sisters Hunter or something like that, I don't know what to call it. But yeah, that's about it for Hunter it seems. With Mage, Elemental Mage is definitely the cheapest deck you could be bringing to Easy Legend, like look at this nonsense. 35,000 games, 57 almost % win rate. But Protoss Mage definitely is the deck people are complaining a lot more about right now, and for good reason. It's very not fun and non-interactive when you face one of those. And there's all sorts of different iterations of this deck, some with Elise, others without, and personally I do like the one without. With Paladin, we still have Bubble Pally and Aggro Pally doing just as great for the class. Bubble Pally also has this Pipsy variant, which is very greedy but very fun to play when it works. There's also this weird Aura Pally here with Lynessa, but as you see the win rate is not amazing. For the Priest class, Protoss Priest is still doing kinda fine, but it's definitely a lot less popular now. Bandage Priest still playable apparently. Zarimi Priest is also up there, even though it's not the monster of a deck it used to be once the new iteration of it came out the first few days. So far Control Priest still doesn't seem too fancy, and all of them are under 50% win rate. For the Rogue class, it seems Templar Rogue would be the best bet for Diamond Legend at least, but in Top Legend, as you saw, Psycho Rogue is also doing crazy good. There's this thing called Thief Rogue apparently, which I think I faced one time and it was very disgusting with Tess Greymane doing absolute nonsense over and over and over again. That was pretty dumb. Garona Rogue also apparently, even though it does look like Thief Rogue again. And I think that's about it for Rogue right now, even though Space Rogue in Top Legend is actually kind of funny. And you could check out my new guide about it from a few days ago. And lastly for Warlock, we have Shred Warlock looking like it's kind of good, but I've tried the deck and it really feels dumb, guys. Like if you don't curve off amazingly well with the Coyotes, usually it's just not doing much. It's an okay board-centric deck, but it's definitely not better than the good board-centric decks out there right now, so there's not a real reason for you to be playing this deck if you want to play this playstyle. Egg Warlock apparently is just barely above 50, but nothing too great. So that's about it for this top 5, guys. Do let me know in the comments which is your favorite deck right now, and please double check if you have the hype option, and let's see if we can make this video explode. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you find the video helpful, and don't forget to check me out live on stream each Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, live on Twitch. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.